Hey everyone, welcome to Make Room. This video on game making is a behind the scenes look at the Instructor game we're building for the April 2020 challenge. In this video, I'm going to talk about prototyping. This is an early phase in production where I create a basic first playable. Like the name says, this is the first playable version of my game. Here, I'm going to show you what I did to put together a quick level environment for my first playable. Okay, so to prototype this game, I started out going on the asset store. I needed some basic assets to work with, and since my game is set in a park, I actually just typed in the word park and searched for what I could find that was free. I quickly landed on this low poly park asset, which I thought would be a great place to start in prototyping. It comes with a demo scene that's laid out like what you see here. And I thought, oh, great, I can start out with a prototype level already built rather than custom laying down a bunch of ground and road and trees before I get into any gameplay, which would take a pretty long time. So I pulled this asset and checked out the demo scene that comes with it. I'm going to open that here in my from my project. And, after I pulled that, I noticed, great, there's a nice, nice basic low poly park for me to work with. Now, maybe later in the development process, I would say I want to use some nicer graphics for this game, maybe something a little bit more custom. But at this stage in the process, when I haven't really designed any gameplay, I just need something basic to work with. So I said, this is going to do, I only need to make a few changes to this to have it fit what I have in my head. What I have in my head is, I'm thinking of a city park because I live in Manhattan. So I want to imitate the feel of being in the city. And to do that, I'm going to need to make a few changes to this. Most city parks in Manhattan don't have a river running through them, at least not the parks near my house. So I said to myself, I'm going to give myself about half an hour to make changes to this, and then whatever I end up with at the end of that time is what I'm going to use. So the things I prioritized when I started making changes were getting rid of the river and the bridges, putting ground down in here instead, removing this back half so that the park is flat like a city park, and then giving the park a fence and something that might look like a sidewalk around the outside. That would be good enough to evoke the basic look and feel and help me get on the road to actually designing gameplay. So let me show you the scene I built. Here it is. So as you can see, I went ahead and deleted the river. I put my sidewalk around the outside and I added a fence here. This did take me, I think, maybe 30 or 45 minutes to do, just thinking through exactly how I wanted to lay this out. Right down here in the middle is where the river used to be. I actually duplicated one of the tiles that contains a fountain in it over here and just dragged it over here into the middle. And then I rearranged the fountains so that there was two on either side that were one type, and then there was a different type in the middle just to give it some symmetry. These sidewalks here are just cubes. As you can see, if you look in the hierarchy, I click on here, it says cube 1. Essentially what I did there is I went to create, 3D object, cube, and then I scaled it to turn it into this long board-like thing. On the outside of this, I've got a big gray plane that I feel like maybe at least looks a little bit like pavement. If I like this game prototype enough, it might be worth building out what's around here to look like a city with high rises and other buildings. But I'm not going to worry about that right now because once I've got a park that looks the way I want, I need to really get involved in coding up an avatar to run around in here. I did want to show you guys something though that is really helpful when you're working with environment that can be just a little confusing if you don't deal with object meshes and their materials that much. So when I created these sidewalks, I wanted to make them gray. And as we know, if you've used Unity at all, you don't just like click on something and set its color. That's not how Unity works. If you want to change the color of something, you have to create a material that includes a lot of different textures or potential textures and a shader to cause that object to take on color and smoothness and shininess and all kinds of different qualities of what you might see in the world. So to create a gray sidewalk, I actually created a new material here by in the root assets folder. You could put it anywhere. I happen to do it here. I right clicked and I went to create. And then out of this menu, I clicked on material. Once there, I was actually able to change the tint of that new material by clicking on the right here next to that teardrop icon or eyedropper icon, I should say, and then changing this. Say I wanted to make a red material. Drag it over here. I click the X. This is red. And then for these particular objects, I went ahead and turned the smoothness down. If you look at the circle for my new material, as I move this smoothness slider, you can see if I turn it up, it's very shiny. And if I turn it down, it's super soft, almost like a rubber ball. So for my road and sidewalk materials, I turned the smoothness all the way down because I don't want these really to look smooth and shiny. That's not how concrete and pavement look. If I wanted this to really look like concrete and pavement, I could add in a texture by setting the albedo for that material. I don't have any concrete and road textures right now, so I didn't do that in this prototype. In the case of low poly, it does look weird to add a detailed texture, but if I were going a bit more high res, I would click on this circle next to albedo and add a texture someone had designed to look like a road. But once you have a material set up, all you have to do is drag it over the object where you want to apply that material, and it automatically changes. Keeping in mind, any object that uses that material will change if you change the material. So for example, if I click on this sidewalk, scroll down here, oh, I want this to be a little less gray. Say I change this one to something wacky like purple, you can see that all of the pieces of sidewalk change to a different color here. They all change to purple, and that is because they're all using this material. So that can be really convenient because if you want to change everything using that material at once to a slightly different color, it happens automatically. But in the case of something like, say I click on this and I want to make this one look different, it's going to change every single object using that material in the scene. And sometimes you don't want that, in which case you'd have to create a custom material just for the object you want to change. Just a little tip there for you guys who want to play with color when you're doing environment design. The other option is always just to leave it blank and worry about it later. Lots of people prototype without coloring things in. And as always, when you're prototyping a new game, the point is to get as quickly as possible to gameplay so you know whether or not your idea is fun.